Kit Gurus with Silverstone at Computex, and would you take a look at this? The IceMyst 240 ARGB is a regular 240mm ARGB AIO, just as it looks, except it has a cap that can come off the pump body and go back on. And this means if you add in their humorously named IMF 70 accessories, 70 because 70mm, there are little extra fans. You see? It uses the same mounting mechanism, and now you can stack up your fans, puts the cap back on. Look at that, didn't even break it. So there we have 3 of these accessories. But if we go to the right, Matt, and let's show the ladies and gentlefolk, look at this. They have stacked, they tell us, up to 12 of these IMF 70s. The only limitation, apart from the thing falling apart, is PWM power from your motherboard. So there is some sense behind this product, which is the cooling is downdraft on not only your CPU area, but also VRMs and M.2. Never seen anything like it. It's fun and games, and you can swing the fans around to choose the location they're going to go into. However, we discovered the joints are quite stiff. I guess these are early production versions, and I'm inclined to break them if I yank on it too hard, so I ain't going to do that on camera. Fun, fun, fun. Moving around the corner, the C542. Silverstone could do working on their model names. The significant thing here when you look inside is the cables all go that away, because this is one of those motherboards that has rear connections for power, USB and the rest, which means the front of the board is very clean. As you can see, the motherboard here, Asus Tough Gaming. If we go up here, C541, which has a Gigabyte Z690 Aorus Elite Stealth. So that's the Gigabyte version. This case, MSI B650M Project Zero. Let's go round the front of this case, the C341. The significant thing about the build in the C341 is the MSI B650M Project Zero motherboard. We'd never heard of it. It turns out that MSI is launching it later today. So by the time you see this video, this motherboard should be a thing that you've heard about. These stealth motherboards with back connections, we like the idea, but it is notable that the motherboards that have come out so far are basic motherboards. They're quite cheap, and actually you'll find them quite hard to buy. We are told that this is because the manufacturers are putting a toe in the water. We fully expect there are going to be more expensive motherboards with stealth connections coming in the future, and cases such as this C3 series, which have extra space for the cables to fit in, this is a necessary part of the infrastructure. The Alta F2, this case has officially launched, but this is the first time that we've seen it. It is huge. This is technically one side, but to my mind it's the front. This is technically the front, but I think it's the side. Now we've got the glass off, we can have a good look inside. We have a huge radiator. We cannot quite remember if it's a 540 or a 560. We have 3 180 fans underneath, and then we have 4 140s on top. An unusual configuration. The explanation is they couldn't get enough 180s for this build. And that, in a sense, is a problem you might run into if you want to build this PC yourself. But, put it another way, it can accommodate all the cooling in the world. We have a distro plate in what is technically the front, I think of as the side, and we have a vertical GPU. But, Matt, if you swing back to the GPU and look closely, and you'll see it's not vertical. Behold. And that's because it's inclined at 11 point something degrees to give better airflow. Most unusual. And now I'm going to ask Matt to lift the camera and go overhead just to give a brief glance at the I/O, because of course this is a vertical updraft case and we've got a monumental number of PCI Express expansion slots. And back to the front. This case is clearly epic and also heavy. We're looking at 20 kilos or so bare, which is a huge amount of weight, but next to it we've got something even heavier. This Alta D1 is a server type chassis, 30 kilos bare. Very hefty construction. The significant point is it's modular. So for example, you can take out these various bays. You can remove these panels here with this I/O, and you can, if you choose, install radiator brackets. But the question of which radiator brackets you'll get with this case and what kind of storage brackets you'll get is a little bit up in the air at the moment, because this is still TBA. They have not finalized the spec. This case is huge. It will accommodate any workstation motherboard you choose to throw at it. That's not a problem. And similarly, storage and cooling. I think if we just go around to the little back of it, Matt, and just take a quick look, and we get a flavor for the amount of expansion. It's just next level and monumental. Sugo 17 is a micro ATX case despite its appearance, and they recommend you actually install an ITX motherboard. So the motherboard is the least of it. This case is all about huge levels of cooling and support for the largest graphics card. When you install a power supply, in this case it looks like an SFX to me, but you can go larger on the power supply and it doesn't overlap with the cooling, and that's significant. There's no point after all in having loads of cooling and then you block it off with one of your other components. Above the power supply and the motherboard tray, we have 4 80mm fans. It's an extraordinary piece of work, and the idea it's micro ATX strikes me as slightly bizarre. The idea you put a mini ITX motherboard in it, well, that is a novel take. Most of these fans are familiar to a Shark Force, for example, an air penetrator, but down here we have some small form factor fans called Slimmer, and the reason is they are indeed slimmer. They're not, as they first appear, 15mm in thickness. They are apparently 15 point something mil thick or thin. So they're certainly thinner than your regular 25, but they're not a round number. Power supplies, the Hella range of power supplies. We've got a bunch of Platinums, 850 watt, 1200, 13, 1650. This is 2050 watts of Platinum power supply. Turn it around so you can see the connections. Yes, we think that just about will accommodate you, sir. Check out the 12 watt high power connectors. Is there anything that power supply can't do other than, break the bank? I mean, that is fully loaded. I think I said one of the power supplies at Deepcool was fully loaded, but at that point I hadn't seen this Hella 2050. So this is the new definition of fully loaded. I've learned something today. I thought all these power supplies were ATX 3.0. However, it turns out that SFX has its own standard. These power supplies, SX 1000R and Extreme 1200R Platinum, are not ATX 3.0, they are SFX 4.0. I did not know there was such a standard, so I am corrected. Silverstone celebrating its 20th anniversary. The TG7 hasn't been in production for a long while, but if we go to the right and come into, we've got the whole thing full frame, I think they want full of it. We have the Xforma MBX MKII, which is the biggest of big nods to the TJ07. This build is absolutely spectacular. Apparently done by a Chinese builder. They haven't named the builder, but that is truly epic. It also makes you wonder, why did the TJ07 ever go out of production? We've seen some huge cases and we've seen some impressive cases, but this is just stunning. Behind me I have an array of modular rack servers. Now, servers is not a kit guru thing, so we're not going to go through the detail of these components. Instead, we're going to sign off at Silverstone at Computex 2023. We've seen some fun stuff and we've seen some spectacular stuff. You can always trust Silverstone to have something different.